trying to be cohesive and for that story to really come together. I don't want a parcel. I've been a storyteller my whole life. You got to start at the beginning and tell the whole story, not bits and pieces of the story, or they don't come together and it feels inauthentic.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. Giada de Laurentiis is in the studio for an all-time classic conversation. She is the Emmy Award-winning television personality of Food Network's Everyday Italian, among many other shows, and the author of 9 New York Times best-selling cookbooks, including her most recent, Eat Better, Feel Better. Also on the show is Julius Roberts. Julius is a chef and farmer living in the idyllic English countryside off the Dorset coast. He's also the author of The Farm Table, a new cookbook chronicling his life cultivating crops and animals and cooking with this bounty. I hope you enjoy these conversations. Giada de Laurentiis, welcome to This is Taste. It's so fun to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I was just saying, our mutual friend Erica has been sending over products from Giada for about 6 months. Your panettone, like no cap, that is the best panettone I've had. That guy Roy sent me one. I had some really good ones from Italy.
Roy's is good too.
It's pretty good. It's all right. But I think I'm just shots fired. No, it's not really that. But I really liked your panettone. I was blessed with a few of them. It was great. It was the best one.
I'm incredibly excited to hear that. I work really hard on these products at finding unique artisans that are making things in the traditional way. I also am really diligent about the visuals.
Yeah.
So having come from food television where all you could do was see, you couldn't taste, you couldn't smell, nothing else, how was I going to get you in the kitchen to cook? I needed to make it visually incredibly appealing, which I think is something that Italians do anyway on their own really well. But I really wanted to make the packaging something that was incredibly visual, that made your mouth water when you saw it. Because I don't have any other way to sell you something, especially digitally.
No.
So if you can't go in store and taste like you do sometimes at a grocery store, how do you know that panettone is going to be amazing? So in your mind, the packaging is phenomenal. A lot of it recyclable, so you can put things in the container, right? So you might want to buy it as a gift for a friend or for yourself or for your table because it looks amazing. And then you taste it and you're like, holy, it's amazing.
You can drop S's. Now, I'm just going to add another layer to this. People are going to assume it's not good because, when you're on television, they think it's just this commodity thing. So when you're selling in Giada, you're doing a line of pastas, which you've sent me as well, which are great. And there's a lot of people who are going to judge it harder.
No question.
Yeah.
I think anytime a celebrity does anything, people judge it harder. The thing is about this particular thing is that I'm not just licensing my name to somebody. I built this as an entrepreneur from the beginning myself. It started as a content platform. Giada.
Yeah, and we published it here at Clarkson Potter.
Yes.
Yeah, we're in the building.
That was the very beginning days. Yeah. Then that closed up. And then I restarted it by myself and funded it alone for about 4 years. And then during 2020 is when I teamed up with a friend of mine who had a warehouse who imported all Italian goods and was unable to sell them to restaurants and was panicking of what he was going to do with all this inventory. And that's when I realized, I should take his products, my recipes, merge them together and create kits for people. And that just took off. And it continued to take off after 2020, after COVID. And that's when I started to realize, okay, I might have a viable business. So maybe I go and raise some money through the VC world.
Really?
I'm on my third year.
Did some Sand Hill Road meetings up in
yes,
Bay Area?
No joke.
Yeah,
my lead investor is 2 doors down. On Sand Hill Road.
Listen, there is no joke. It's serious business and it's quality and you're a big personality. So, bless you for making it happen.
Yes, and that's a good thing. But there's a flip side to that is that, I think a lot of people when I went out looking for investment were like, Just another celebrity brand. I don't know if we're into it.
D2C is like a little bit cooling. Maybe it's not that great.
Exactly. We're not sure if the time has already passed, and there's Italy's in many parts of the country now. Why you guys? So all of this took some thinking and some real creating and some heart and soul, because it has been my passion for a long time. I just did not have the time in 25 years to ever put this together. It's been an evolution.
So why you guys? Let me ask you. That's the follow-up. Why should we buy your products? I mean, I just gave my anecdote of one product.
No, of course. Yeah, absolutely. I think what makes us different, first of all, I'm curating them.
Sure.
I was born in Italy. My family still lives in Italy. And so there's a real connection to the homeland for me personally. My whole brand has been built on Italian. And I think over the 20 years, I have gained a trusted following that my recipes and my knowledge is something that people trust. And I think that's number one on the list. Number two, the products are really good and clean and are without a lot of the fillers that you find in Italian products these days, because they are mass-produced.
Yeah, mass-produced.
Let's just leave it at that.
You raise scale. You've got cutting corners.
Yes. And also Italian brands that might still produce some things in Italy for Europe, but otherwise produce in the United States.
Yeah.
And there's a completely different ethical situation going on there, and I think people are mistaken.
Are you
in marketing?
Are you in the tomato world? Are you doing tomato products?
So tomatoes is my next launch.
I was right. So I knew you haven't. So entering the tomato world.
Tomatoes
not easy.
No. Tomatoes are tough. It's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. You do? How do you know?
Well, I write about food, and Stanislav's in Central Valley, California. I mean, those are some of the best in the world. So when you're talking about Italian, Nepali, Southern Italian tomatoes.
Campagna, to be exact.
Campagna, right. I messed it up.
No. Puglia has tomatoes as well. So there are other areas.
Puglia's got the olive oil, which is dope.
Yes, but they also have tomatoes.
Okay.
They also have datterini.
My experience is that tomatoes in America are quite good, and it's a very crowded business. There's a lot of good products available. This is my read, but please.
Yes, but there are only a few people who actually run that business. They are the ones that sell to everyone else. And the market is really dominated by a couple of people. It's not dominated by hundreds of people.
Yeah.
All of those hundreds of people are sourcing from the same spot, if they are from Italy. And if not, they're taking seeds, and still that is a whole business on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, in Italy, there just isn't that much land anymore to grow tomatoes. There just isn't. There's such a mass, appetite for tomatoes coming from that region that they just can't produce it. In fact, we just had a harvest where the tomatoes, they had a really bad season.
Yeah.
Very few of the datterini and the ciliegini that I really like, the pomodorini, because I'm not interested in the larger tomatoes so much.
Yeah.
That, to me, that market has been done.
Are you jarring them?
Yes, we are jarring them, then we are also making sauce. But I'm looking for the baby tomatoes, the cherry tomatoes, right? Those are much harder to find, and there aren't really any sauces making them with those style tomatoes.
So you make sauce with the small guys, and you're doing jars with the small guys too. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Muti jarred and canned small guys, but tell me about your product that you've come up with. I'm curious how you think about.
Muti's actually a good brand. They're a good brand. And they are widely distributed, so that's great. I think that for me, I am looking for tomatoes specifically from Campania because of the rich soil.
Yeah.
Okay, and the way that the sun hits the soil, it just creates a sweetness that is sort of not easy to find anywhere else. And so for me, those are really, really special. Muti, it just depends, They source from many different places.
If you're doing single origin, and that's what your Giada's brand is about, single origin, that's
a lot
cool.
of single origin, also with olive oils, single origin, teaching people about the olives, where they come from, what the flavor profile is, and what is the importance of single origin. How does that work within your body? And really understanding the quality of the ingredients that you're putting in, because pasta has gotten a bad rap for so long, and there's so many pastas out there. Some great, some not.
Yeah.
I think that depending on where you source them from and how they're produced has a lot to do with it.
How do you judge dried pastas? Because you are so right when you say there are some that are good and some are not good. But when we as a consumer enter the aisle, it's very confusing to us. We obviously are judging it by price. But how should we think about buying dry pasta?
I think, the thing about dried pasta is that if it's super cheap, chances are it's not really that great for you, number one, and it isn't produced in a way that your body will react positively. And I think that's one of the reasons that a lot of people have intolerances, right? I think the quality of the ingredients matters a ton. So my pasta comes from Abruzzo.
Yeah.
It's a very small area that is very sparsely populated, right? They have a lot of wheat fields.
Mm-hmm.
And so they grow their own wheat and they source the water from the mountains. They do not mass produce.
Yeah,
they don't.
They can't probably.
They just don't have they don't have the bandwidth to mass produce, right? It's also the process, not just of the bronze dyes, but the pressure of the dough that's going through and the heat. So in order to mass produce, you have to push out the dough at very high temperatures and then dry it very quickly. We do it at a much slower pace. So when you heat that dough at a certain temperature, it changes the chemistry. It's all about chemistry at the end of the day. The heat kills any good bacteria that might be in there. And then the way you dry it has a lot to do with it as well. So
heat is
slow.
Heat is creating
temperature of dough.
Speed. So you want to do it slower.
Yes.
So you don't kill the good bacteria and also flavor. We're talking about flavor.
Texture.
Well, yeah, that's right.
That rough texture that you feel, really, really important in the end result.
Love talking about products, and I feel like this is only the beginning for you. Is there a category that you want to enter that you're just really puzzled about right now? Let's be honest. You're being honest with me.
Well, I was puzzled about tomatoes.
Yeah, no,
really long. I've been trying to do tomatoes for 2 years. It has been one of the most difficult journeys.
Yeah,
I had no idea that it was this difficult to do. I think too, for me, packaging is so important.
Yep.
I think because I come from a world of TV where I've had to look at the visual, and that's why I've been selling my brand for so long, that the visual and the packaging, I've spent a lot of time as much on as curating the products themselves and sourcing them because I want to create an emotion.
Yeah.
That's really what I'm selling is emotions.
Yeah, I mean,
a connection, a community of emotions to the motherland, to my motherland.
Yeah.
And I think it all goes hand in hand. Most companies do not spend much on packaging. That visual isn't quite.
I agree. CPG has been way behind a lot of other industries. Media is much better designed than CPG.
Look at fashion. Look at cosmetics. Look at the beauty
much more
world.
Progressive, right?
Look at their packaging.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that. If I look at what my 16-year-old is buying, she's not looking at the quality of the makeup. She's looking at the packaging that they're marketing on TikTok. Take those ideas and put it into the DTC world, in the food business. And I think nobody's really done that with storytelling, with emotion.
Yeah.
All of those things have not come together. And that's what we're doing
growing.
at Giada. It's different.
It's growing. And you walk walk Expo West or Fancy Food Show, you see some brands that get it. Many don't.
No.
They think they get it, but
Correct.
It's corny. Shit is corny. Now, let me ask you about marketing products, because this is a big challenge for founders, is getting through the noise. You're doing D2C, or are you doing retail channels? Are you getting deals
right
from
now?
retail?
We're just doing D2C.
Interesting.
We are looking at some retail channels.
Yeah.
But I've really wanted to keep it D2C for a long time because once you go into the retail channels,
Your margins go away.
Huh?
Your margins go away.
Well, it's a different type of business, really, because maybe the margins are less, but the volume is more, right? So
agree.
So, it's
you came correct. I'm wrong. You can make a ton of money with low margins.
Oh, yeah.
With
you
scale.
can because the scale is bigger, right?
Scale.
But to me, the storytelling is so important.
Agree.
And in the past, I haven't been able to really control that storytelling as much when I've gone into retail and brick and mortar. So I really want the storytelling and the emotion and the experience to really stay connected. And so I have been hesitant to do that.
Yeah. But the right deal can come your way. And you'll
And there have been some. I'm holding out for a little longer.
No, I'm into it. I like that you're standing firm.
And I want my whole line to be cohesive and for that story to really come together. I don't want a parcel.
You don't want your
I don't want olive oil in one store and pasta in another store and we're going to start tabletop and I I want everything together. This is a story. I've been a storyteller my whole life. You got to start at the beginning and tell the whole story, not bits and pieces of the story, or they don't come together and it feels inauthentic.
Let's pivot to your early life living in Los Angeles. I want to get to like when you're in college at UCLA. What's food like in Los Angeles for you? Because we talk about LA a lot, but I feel like I'd like to get your take on LA. How do you think about LA in that era? Was food not that important in your life at that point?
No, food was important, but I cooked.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a family that cooked.
Yeah.
We didn't go out to dinner the way that, there was no Postmates and delivery, right? And picking up food from a restaurant was not the thing in the 80s, late 70s when I moved here. Even the 90s, it wasn't, you went to a restaurant, but I cooked. I mean, I was known in my friend group for the ones that I had dinner parties all the time. I liked to cook my own food. I did not love going out to eat. Having said that, I worked for Wolfgang Puck. I worked in restaurants in Los Angeles. So I didn't want to be in a restaurant. I worked there. So when I wasn't working there, I didn't want to be there, eating there. I wanted to be at home.
This is so
cooking.
Interesting. Because I think of when a chef has a career in food, you're trying to see the competition, you want to go out there. But I totally hear you because it's also a little bit of a different era when maybe community wasn't quite there as it is now. Maybe
it's
not.
Totally different. The world was, I keep telling people, the world was different. Things really have changed at a rapid pace that most people can't wrap their heads around. But for people, millennials, they don't understand. I grew up in a different LA than what you know now, right? We didn't have that sense of community. Yeah, there were restaurants, there was California Pizza Kitchen, there were places like that, right? But to me, that was fast food type of eating.
Yeah.
And I grew up in an Italian family where we made pizza at home. Yeah. So I went to California Pizza Kitchen because that's where my friends wanted to go. But I mean, did I dream about going there all the time? No. The thing I remember the most about those days was frozen yogurt.
Yeah.
I loved
TCBY?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Loved frozen yogurt. That was like, I don't know why, it just felt like revolutionary with toppings. And then I went to certain ones that mixed it in front of you. You could pick the bases.
TCBY back then was so good.
Exactly.
We haven't had yogurt since then, like at all.
No, it's different.
It's different. I like Asian flavors a lot. Like pinkberry's cool, and that's a whole different genre. But we're talking about like the Western flavors. Like the peanut butter hit different in 1988.
It's a totally different, yes. And yes, so if you ask me what the food was like, I mean, cup of noodles was maybe what I had in college. But other than that, I did not like fast food.
Westwood didn't have a scene? There was nothing going on there? Not really?
I mean, it had Olive Garden, which I didn't go to.
LA is so interesting.
It had, not really.
You're articulating exactly
I'm sorry,
what I wanted.
We just didn't have what you're thinking. We had like random here and there mom and pop shops, but nothing that I loved. All I remember is TCBY for yogurt. I loved it. And I'd have cup of noodles here and there. But otherwise, people came over.
Yeah.
I cooked all the time.
I mean, the LA food scene is really, really, really
And also, there were no celebrity chefs at the time. Anyway, that world didn't exist.
Absolutely not. You've articulated my point. You've made it beautifully that LA's food scene has really changed. We have a lot of listeners who live in LA who are younger and don't realize that it was not what it is now.
No.
At all.
Not even remotely.
Let's talk about another city that has changed greatly, and you're very aware of this, is Las Vegas. Because I love that you operate there with, a big scale. I'd love to get a sense of why you enjoy operating Las Vegas, which to me is one of America's great food cities that doesn't get quite the attention. I think we obviously have the big celebrity places. Your place is a celebrity place, but there's also a lot going on there in the food world. And I'll just close and say, people visit Vegas for the food and maybe not the gambling too.
So the reason that I was given an opportunity to go to Vegas is because they started to realize, and this is 10 years ago, that people were coming for food and entertainment, not so much gambling. And they were really trying to harness the female community. And so in doing that, I was one of the first, because I think Border Grill was also there, but one of the very first celebrity female chefs to come into that city, right on the Strip. And the ability to build my own restaurant from a 2-floor parking garage was with the view of the Bellagio fountains with windows that open up to the Strip. I mean, that was just with my name right on Las Vegas Boulevard. It's unheard of. Nobody gets that opportunity. But I remember that was the whole that was the whole point of me opening there, is to get more families in there. And that's exactly what we did and we've been doing it for 10 years.
You operate 2 restaurants, correct now?
Yeah, so one is a gourmet restaurant, Giada, at the Cromwell, and the other one is a quick serve, Pronto, at Caesar's Palace.
That's exciting. So let me ask you, I got a bunch of questions to follow up. Now, how do you keep the quality high when you're not there all the time? That, to me, is always the challenge for a celebrity chef operating in multiple cities, multiple time zones.
I go there a lot.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Your name's on the door.
Well, but the thing is, not everybody does.
No.
But I go there a lot, but luckily I don't live very far. I live, 45-minute plane ride away. So I go often. I do random checks where I am unannounced and I show up. I also have people go to the restaurant when I am not there that are undercover, basically, to give me sort of a heads up on what is going on and what's the food. And then also I put people in place there that I know and that I have mentored and that understand my food. And it's just about staying on top of it. I have a guy who works for me who's been working for me for a while, Michael Spiegel, and he lives in Las Vegas. And he basically goes every day. And that's the kind of, that's what you need. You need someone boots on the ground every day, believe it or not. For me, I just opened my 3rd restaurant in Scottsdale, but before that, for 10 years, I had only those 2 in Vegas.
Yeah.
And that makes it easier to stay on top of things.
Yeah.
If you don't have, 25 of them.
Yeah, and I'm glad you made the point of your scale is not an aggressive sense of it's not like a different model where
No, but you have to understand that in the restaurant business, if you don't have scale, it's very difficult to make money. I don't think everybody understands. Take Vegas out of it because Vegas is an anomaly. It's a city that's special compared to any other city.
Yeah.
Even New York City is not like Vegas. People really go from all over the world just for food, which is phenomenal. But if you don't have scale in the restaurant business, making money it's
a low margin business.
It's incredibly low margin.
Do you ever make it out to Vegas, other restaurants in the city? I know you're there to work.
Oh, sure. I go test out a lot of other restaurants. I went to Carbone. I've been, Bobby Flay just opened a new French restaurant. I go and check out all my peeps and competitors. I mean, you have to. So in Vegas, I do it a lot. Yeah. And in fact, I go out to check out competitors more where I have a restaurant than I do in any other city.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, because it is like a competitive marketplace. Exactly. Opening in the Phoenix market, I was just in Phoenix in December, and lovely town. Lovely place. I had never been. And my friend Angelo Sosa just opened a great restaurant up there, and you've just opened a restaurant. What's that been like opening in Phoenix or Scottsdale, I guess?
Well, Scottsdale has been I'm just shocked at the amount of restaurants and the quality and the standards.
Agree.
It's really phenomenal how far they've come since I think I signed my deal to open in 2019. I think they've grown. That city has grown a ton since then. A lot of people who really value the quality of the food, the service, just the experience as a whole. So I've only been open. I opened 8 weeks ago?
Yeah,
so not that long. But it's been phenomenal. It really has.
What's the cuisine like then in Scottsdale? What's your menu? What are some of the dishes that you're...
Luna is a little bit lighter than it is at Giada. We do have some of the sort of hallmark dishes like lemon spaghetti, but we've created a lot of other recipes and dishes that are a little more unique to the landscape and to the clientele there. Mm-hmm. We have a spicy vodka that I don't have in Vegas. We have a chicken panzanella that I don't have. I mean, there's a lot of things that are unique to that space, to that place. But I think for me, the most important part is the experience, the pasta wheels, making things table side.
Cool.
And I can really create the experiences that I always thought I think are really important as part of a dining experience.
Okay, so when you come to New York, where are you going? What are your when you talk about the community?
I love Isadie.
Yeah, right.
I think she does.
That's such a good place,
and I love the concepts of all of her restaurants, all near each other. I mean, that was sort of Mario Batali's way of doing things.
Yeah,
and I love what she's done. I think she's, I think it's phenomenal. I think I love how quaint they are, how small they are, detailed. I just love what she does. Anyway, and then La Conda Verde is sort of a a place I go to.
It's still consistent. I mean, he just opened Cafe Carmelini, which is, his high-end place. But yeah,
Andrew does a great job.
He's a good
and
chef.
He shows up to his spots, and I appreciate him for that.
Yeah.
Marini, I like as well. Good quality, high-end, simple. I'm not a big lover of lots of sauces and heavy food. My system it's just not a pleasant experience.
What about NYC Pizza? Do you have any takes? Do you have any spots? Do you have any point of view, opinions?
There's been so many now. I can't remember. Is Joe's one?
Joe's is still very good. They have like offshoots.
Because I used to go to Joe's a lot.
The one down in Carmine is good.
Which one?
The one down in Carmine?
Yeah.
That's the good
one
one.
I've been to.
That's the good one.
I haven't been to one in a long time. So
good.
I can tell you. You stumped me on that one.
I get off that.
But I like Neapolitan pizza.
Me too.
So
I think, and that's the one that's fucked up the most. I feel like that's the one that's kind of bad usually. But when it's good, it's good. And I still think.
Well, what do you like?
Una Pizza Napolitano for Neapolitan, I think is quite good. I think Roberta's still makes a really good.
Roberta's is good. We have one in LA now too.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. I feel like maybe I wouldn't put that one over. But for me, it's F&F up in Carroll Gardens, the Frank's Pizzeria. They have like it's really good. That's my guy.
Brooklyn has great food.
It sure does. Yeah.
Missy Robbins is doing an unbelievable job.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I mean,
not said enough.
She is just fabulous. And you know what? More power to her. I love the women.
Agree.
Yes.
Thank you for.
We're having a moment, and we deserve a moment.
Let me ask you about having the moment now. Back when you started getting on television, and one of the more prominent female voices, was it challenging for you? Did you feel like you had to fight a lot of stereotype?
I think too. For me, I had a certain stereotype because I didn't fit the model or the, whatever the cultural norm of what I should look like.
I know.
I'm sure you can understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm saying I think like physicality with the chef is something that is judged and critiqued, and it's sexist.
If I look the way I look, I could possibly know how to cook because I can't possibly eat either.
Yeah.
So I think that's the stereotype that I fought my entire career, and I still get it. Sometimes people still say to me, they'll just stop me on the street and be like, that saying, you can't trust a skinny cook. I don't know. But I think over the 25 years, I've proved them wrong.
Yeah.
But still, it's definitely something that I've battled with my entire life.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. I think it's really important to note that it still remains today. And like we've seen great, female voices. You mentioned Missy, but like there still is a lot of fucking sexism in the food world, and it sucks.
Yes, it's gotten better.
Yeah, man,
it's gotten better, but it's baby steps. Like so slow.
It's a boys' club still.
Yeah,
and
you either fit into the boys' club or you don't. And if you don't, then you get shunned. That's how it works. But I got lucky because I think sometimes in life, if you just stay consistent and just keep on it, you can change people's minds. I mean, if that wasn't the case, I wouldn't still be here today.
What was your first food TV moment? When were you first on camera?
Food Network was my first real. Well, actually, I was in a movie first.
Okay.
Because my family's in the movie business.
Yeah.
So I worked on a movie. When we were growing up, one of the rules was you have to work each department on a movie because you got to find your place as to where you're going to work. So before I went to college, I did that. And I did an acting role, which was terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Is it available on Netflix?
Oh, I'm sure. It's terrible. It's called Time Bomb. It's awful. Anyhow.
Wait, is that a U.S. production or Italian production?
No, it's a U.S. production.
That's what I thought.
It's terrible. Anyways.
I got Clayton is a movie.
Please.
Clayton, have you seen Time Bomb?
No, it's so old. No.
I've not.
Yeah.
I will now, though.
Clayton has a great a cinema podcast, so I just had to ask you.
Why would you? It's horrible. It's terrible.
Why is it so bad?
Just because it's so hokey. And I did a scene in it because my family was like, oh, maybe you want to be an actor because my grandmother was an actress. And I realized I never want to be in front of the camera. So which is why, then fast forward X amount of years later when Food Network came calling and said, put yourself on camera. I was like, absolutely fucking right.
Yeah.
So it took me 6 months to listen to them. So the fact that I'm here now is kind of shocking. But I feel like it's because there are two Giadas. There's one for the camera, and then there's one that is just a homebody and a very, very much an introvert.
I met you in Aspen, Colorado one time, and you were awesome. And when I met you off camera, you're quite real.
Yes, because
I was.
But I'm just saying, I am not an extrovert. This takes a lot of energy for me. I really like to be at home with my daughter, with my dogs, like in my small, with my family. That is where I feel I can recharge. This world that I live in for work is very draining for me. And I think we forget that the people in this world that do what I do, a lot of us, we were kind of misfits. We sort of couldn't find a place in this life. So we decided that we were artistic and this was the best way to sort of relate to people.
Using food as the vehicle.
Yes, not to be in front of the camera, but to use our food, our creation to show you, who we are. And I think we were also pushed in front of the camera as well. And that wasn't part of who we are. So a lot of us are if you ask a lot of my friends, Bobby Flay, we talk about it all the time. He's also an introvert. Like, this is a lot for us to do this.
I respect being candid. Now, let me ask you that first audition. What was that like when you're at Food Network and you'd had this history of the camera? You were a little, but you're so good at it. You're so good at it.
I was not good at it. I lost 50 pounds, if you can believe it. I'm tiny. I was unwell for a lot of it, very nauseous in the very beginning. I sort of chopped with my shoulders and my back to the camera, and the producer kept saying, "You got to open up to the camera." And I didn't.
The movements were not fluid.
I didn't understand. And they kept saying, "You have to explain what you're doing." I'm like, they can see it. I'm chopping an onion. What am I going to explain?
That's funny.
Like, it was really difficult for me to absorb what they were saying. And I think it was incredibly stressful. The beginning was incredibly stressful.
Yeah. But there was a moment of alchemy, right? That made sense. Like, did they just, because you had guest starred on a bigger show, right? You had done a segment. Is that not right?
Never.
So what was your first?
Never. Everyday Italian. I had
Everyday
my own
Italian
show from the
was
very
your
beginning.
First
very
appearance at Food
first.
Network.
Everyday Italian.
Glad we
I'd never
cleared that up.
guested anywhere.
That's amazing.
That's why I'm saying my whole path was completely different. I had a television show before I had a restaurant. Most people on TV had restaurants, then had television shows from the restaurant. I completely came in the back door, which is also why I think I had to fight a lot of stereotypes, because people were like, "What the?
Who are you?
Who the hell are you?
Yeah.
You should have a restaurant if you know how to cook. You can't just start on a show." Even though, Rachel Ray did the same as me. Ina Garten did the same as I did. Different personalities, though. Like, different genres. Italian food is a specific genre that people are like.
They're very protected. They want it to come from like a
authentic place,
a nonna or like a restaurant chef.
Yes,
yeah, I get it.
Yes.
They're
And
very
I came in it from a different angle, and it was like jolting to them. But maybe one of the reasons I'm still here, I don't know.
It worked. I mean, clearly the ratings worked, and did you?
Yes, but I also had time. Okay. Something they're not given today is like I had time to gain a following. Did
you do a lot of competition shows, judging?
No, I only did Food Network Star.
Yeah, you don't do that, right? That's not your thing.
I did Food Network Star, and I really liked it, but I liked more the mentoring than the judging.
Yeah, right on.
I did a few episodes of Beat Bobby Flay. I did a few episodes of Guy's show. I've done a couple, but no, that was never my thing.
Yeah,
I'm not. I did one episode where I competed.
Iron Chef.
And I lost to Rachel and Mario. I did it with Bob. Bobby was my
2 and 2. That's a cool competition show.
I didn't speak to Bobby for 6 months after that. I was so upset.
What happened? Why'd it go south?
I don't know. I mean, I did my part, and he did. I don't know.
I see how it's going.
No, I'm kidding. We both did. I don't know. I mean, the chefs liked their food better. Mario's is an unbelievable cook.
Yeah,
I know things have happened, but
yeah, we can acknowledge that.
But he still was incredibly talented chef. But they just kicked our asses, and I was so sad.
You're competitive, man. You wanted to win.
So competitive. I was so upset. I was upset for 6 months. I was so mad.
Because it didn't air. I mean, you knew it had happened, and then it didn't air.
And the judges just
were they wrong?
I don't know. I never got to taste their food.
Oh, hilarious.
I don't know if they were wrong or not, but I was still upset. A couple
more questions. How often do you go to Italy? Do you go are you there 4 times a year, 8 times a year, 2 times a year?
6.
Great. I said every number but that. All right, 6 times a year.
And in fact, I'm going next Friday again.
I love it. So when you go there, you're traveling for work, you're going to factories, you're going to farms. I know that. But when you're there for fun, are there regions that we don't go to that maybe we should know about?
Yeah, Campania.
Right
the
on.
Sorrento region. I think the South people are still, although Puglia has really come around and they've spent a lot of money in marketing and advertising that area.
Yeah, I was just there on we do trips for taste, and we went there last summer. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. But I don't mean people like you. I mean normal people that travel just for fun.
We took 25 travelers.
Did you? Okay,
Oh, we were on a tour.
Most Americans go north.
I know.
They don't really go south very much. And so I'm really trying to bring a lot of interest into the South because I think the South has probably some of the best food in the world, really, and it's still untapped. So I would say Campania. I would say different parts of Sicily. I think there's certain areas that show did a lot of.
Yeah, that show did a lot of good.
But Sicily's spread out, and the cities aren't that close together, so people end up in one spot and then they don't travel anywhere else. But it's so different.
Yeah, rent that car, drive around, right?
And the islands.
Yeah.
All of the Sicilian islands, all of the islands, you know what I mean? Procida, Ischia, like all these areas that still Americans haven't quite. So that's what I'm working on. And we have a big travel section and we have we're working with some travel partners to give away trips and really get people excited and create an emotional experience with that.
I feel that's so cool that you mentioned the South because we really do focus on the North. I mean,
there's more money in the North. They have more money in the
Milan,
market.
Emilia-Romagna, we obsess over these cities. And Rome is still is that considered halfway?
Rome is still considered halfway.
Yeah.
A lot of people go to Rome, but they don't stay in Rome.
Right.
Rome is the number one destination in the world. That's where planes end up going. But people don't actually stay in Rome. So I've done a lot of curated day trips in Rome to see things that are unexpected in a way a local would rather than just what the tourist guides say. And that's what I'm doing with my membership also that I launch in about a week or so is really creating a community of experience that people can kind of go on that sort of connects people to me, to my family, and creating this larger Italian experiential community. Because like my uncle owns the Naples soccer team. Have you ever been to a Naples soccer game?
I mean, I've walked through the streets of Naples during a game and after a game. They lost, and it was scary.
Yeah, it's scary.
It was scary.
But it's this adrenaline. Like there's an emotional connection that you can get a little taste of it here with football, but on a level that you've never seen before. And
you support Napoli? Is that your team?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nice. Are they good?
Yeah.
They're good.
They've gotten unbelievably good. Yeah.
How fun. Do you go to the games when you get there?
It's craziness. But I just want people to experience that side, my experiences in Italy, like my Italy, rather than just the traditional. I think there's a real unique opportunity for that hasn't quite been tapped in yet.
So we give you some money. What do you pay for the membership?
$70 a year.
Into that. So that's a great number.
$9 a month.
It's a great number. It's like in that Substack range. Like exactly. Yeah. So we give you 70. What are we getting?
We are getting live stream cooking classes with Giada once a month. We're getting curated travel content to different destinations and trips, whether it's a cruise or with a hotel partner. You're getting free shipping on everything, on anything you order from us. You're getting curated recipe kits. You're getting curated menus. You are getting content that you wouldn't otherwise.
Do you get coupons? Do you get discounts? Like promo codes?
Not yet.
Okay.
No. I think that for me, the experience is an emotional connection, and discounts to me make it feel a little less like that.
I'm with you.
But
don't give away the farm.
That's just my opinion. And by the way, I could be so wrong, and people could just hammer me for it, and I might know that a month from now.
You'll figure it out.
So check in with me a month from now. I'll tell you if I was so wrong, and I could be.
I'm into it. I just go there.
Let's see what people say. Yeah. But for me, I'm trying to create this like unique, special experience, and I feel like discounts just kind of don't make it feel as special.
Absolutely. And free shipping. You went Prime. Giada Prime. I love it. All right. On This Is Taste, U.S. guests are about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire, fast and furious taste check. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
The best fruit.
I don't really eat a lot of fruit, but if I'm going to eat one, papaya.
Yeah.
In Hawaii.
When it's good, it's good. The worst vegetable.
Ugh, green peppers.
Yeah.
I don't like green peppers. Sorry.
Yeah, only on pizza, but that's only
I don't even like them on pizza.
No,
nothing. I don't want to see a green pepper.
Love it. The best dessert.
Gianduja chocolates.
Nice. Your favorite American fast food chain?
Well, I don't eat fast food.
Okay.
But I will tell you, my daughter, Panda Express.
Yeah,
she loves Panda Express.
High quality.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Incredibly high quality.
It's good stuff. Your favorite cookbook of all time?
Silver Palette.
Yeah. Figure that. So, favorite New York City restaurant?
Isadi.
Yeah. Favorite Los Angeles restaurant right now?
My kitchen?
That's it?
Just kidding.
It's got to be
Felix.
Yeah.
I love Felix. I love Evan Funky's pasta. I think he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I'd say Felix or Funky.
I've been to Mother Wolf. I haven't been to Funky, but
I like Mother Wolf too. I like the space of Mother Wolf.
Yeah.
I think it's very Roman, very
Are you
very
West Side?
female. Yes.
Yeah.
So I like Felix because it's closer and
Close
it's
by.
way more intimate. Mother Wolf is giant space. It's just
fun though. Fun vibe.
Mm-hmm.
A few more. A cuisine you would like to learn more about.
Japanese. I love Japanese culture. I love Japanese food. I love Japanese people. Japan. Anything Japanese.
Love it. Last one, your favorite sandwich.
Oh, my spin on Al Vecchio Venino's artichoke burrata panino.
Burrata artichoke? Right.
Artichoke spread from Italy. I have this artichoke spread that I just love. It's creamy with burrata. Yes.
Sounds amazing.
Yes.
Giada de Laurentiis, thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
Thank you for having me.
Julius Roberts, This Is Taste. Thanks for coming on the show.
It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you.
It's really fun to have you here. How is it being back in New York so far?
Great. I mean, it's only my second time here, so I'm still in that mode where it very much feels like you're in a film.
Yeah.
I love the skylines, and it was pretty special to be here in the snow.
Yeah, I mean, that feeling never goes away, I would say. Coming back to New York after your first trip, did you eat anything you needed to try again, or you just are still dipping your toes into the water?
I went to Katz's yesterday.
Oh, okay, good.
Which is pretty cool. I've obviously seen those sandwiches online for years. I can't believe how big they are.
They're gigantic and they're very expensive also because they're just so huge.
Can you get a half?
I don't know. That's a good question. I would be scared to ask. I feel like they're kind of the old school deli guys that have a certain way of doing things, but you have the accent, so maybe they would let you get away with it.
Yeah, I got on with the guy serving. It was quite a quiet day. But yeah, it was seriously good.
What did you get? Pastrami?
I got just classic pastrami sandwich with the 2 types of cucumbers and a lot of mustard.
2 types of cucumbers?
Yeah, they do. Do you call them pickles?
Yeah, sure.
They do. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, they are cucumber.
Yeah,
either works.
They do a light one, which is very green, which is hardly pickled, and then a sour one. So it's quite nice to get this contrast.
You know, to be honest, I feel like Katz's is the kind of place that when you're visiting the city you go to, and then if you live nearby or you have a really strong craving for pastrami, then you'll go back. But I haven't been in a couple years, so the fact that they have multiple pickles, like I'm not even up on my Katz's game, I guess.
Well, yeah, worth a trip back. And I want to try the matzo ball soup. I think I might get that later today.
Oh, that is the ultimate like snowy, cold weather in New York experience. A couple weekends ago, I had my ultimate like solo New York day, which was that it was gray and rainy. And I went to a deli in Manhattan, sat at the counter and had a matzo ball soup and a tuna melt and read my book by myself. And it was my fantasy, you know?
That's pretty damn nice.
Yeah, I mean, you have a beautiful country life, so that's another kind of fantasy, I guess. And it's really fun to have you back on the show after our little live event that we did in December. I'm curious if you could maybe just start out the conversation, just for our listeners who aren't as familiar with you, by saying a little bit about what inspired you to make the shift from cooking in restaurants to farming, and how long has it been since you made that transition?
So yeah, it's about 8 years ago now that I left working as a chef in London and moved to the countryside to start a small farm.
Does that feel like a long time to you?
Yeah, but you know, time really does fly and so much has happened. It's quite a distorted 8 years. So part of it feels like yesterday and then it feels like a long time ago too. I'm always, especially recently, like really craving going back to those simpler days. My first few years on the farm when I, had no idea what I was doing and it was also new, were a very special time. But the story was that I was chefing in London at a great restaurant called Noble Rot, which is a French-inspired wine bar that does seriously good wine. They win the wine list of London every year.
They also have a natural wine magazine, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they started as a mag, and then I think through, sponsorship and fundraising through the magazine started the restaurant. And it does very low-key, seasonal, simple, 3 good things on a plate, delicious food. English, French, a little bit of Spanish, small bit of Italian, but, very much English, French food. And they were the guys that taught me to cook. I never went to culinary school or anything like that. I just went straight into the restaurant world, got very lucky getting a job there and had this, wild baptism of fire. It was brutal. Going into a restaurant that's just opening as your first restaurant job is hardcore.
Do you remember like a prep job or something you had to do where you realized, okay, maybe I'm in over my head a little bit?
it wasn't necessarily individual stuff. It was just the volume of work I had to keep up with. And I spent my whole year there chasing my tail. I was never caught up with what I needed to do. So I'd be eating my lunch while sitting there chopping, trying to just catch up with the list of things. And the pressure of that and the stress of that is insane. Chefs are sadists towards themselves.
So you went to the famously chill world of farming instead.
So yeah, obviously you get very inspired by food and ingredients. And each day the producers would turn up in the morning with their boxes of stunning produce and essentially pitch to my chef about how they grew them, because they're trying to sell to him and he's constantly looking for the best ingredients possible, because ultimately there's nothing more important to your food than what you start with. And it was hearing those stories and seeing just the health of these guys. They're country folk, brown skin, blue-eyed, like smiling, and I'm there yellow, dying on my 5th coffee of the morning with...
Haven't seen the sunlight.
Yeah, exactly. You get into work in the dark, leave in the dark. And it just felt like that was a life that really appealed to me. So I left, which was a heartbreaking thing. There's a real camaraderie in the kitchen. You're brothers in arms. And I remember, it took me weeks. We'd sit outside at the end of our shifts having cigarettes, chatting together. And I, was trying to find that moment to sort of say, look, guys, I've got to leave. Like, I can't do this anymore. Because the amount of work that they would have to do to pick up the fact that they'd left a key member is just brutal. And that was a very hard thing to do. But leaving to the countryside is the best thing I've ever done. And there's regrets, and I miss the restaurant world, but I would also never go back. And I'm a true kind of country guy now. The city, as much as I love little like forays into the city, it's not where I'm supposed to be anymore.
A different pace. And I guess now that you've been doing it for 8 years, looking back at the early years when you didn't quite know what was happening is maybe nostalgic. But I would imagine in the moment, it must have been very overwhelming to have to learn how to do so many things. Did you have like a mentor, or how did you kind of get the farm going?
It was just a big old leap of faith. I'd watched some TV shows about farming and had some self-sufficiency manuals, but really I bought some pigs and dove in straight at the deep end. And yeah, you get these days where you're like, I am way in over my head. I've got no idea what I'm doing. I don't know how to fix this. An animal's ill or someone's escaped and you don't have the past knowledge to kind of fix that. But that like being right there on the edge is a very good feeling. I love learning by doing, and I've really learned to love failure as a kind of way of learning. So yeah, those past days were definitely stressful and there was a ton to learn, but it was a very innocent, very inspiring time where it was, a journey of discovery is a pretty epic thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk about the pigs. I think they're called Mongolica pigs.
Yeah.
So why are those the preferred pig?
They're not necessarily a pig I'd get again, but they were an amazing...
So they're not the preferred pig?
They are... So when I was in the restaurant world, Mongolica was this type of pig coming onto the scene because they have this unbelievable amount of fat on them. They're an old school curing pig from Hungary. In the old days, you didn't just have your pig for eating, you had it for the fat too, which was your cooking, your oil for cooking. It was your oil for candle making, for making soaps. The lard that came off a pig was as much a part of it as the meat. Having that amazing casing of fat also makes them incredible for curing. And when you cure them, they come out much like Iberico ham. And so it was more, I suppose, inspired by a certain chefy pretentiousness. I went for Mongolica. And also they're just a great old breed. I love the old breeds.
They're cute also.
They're beautiful. They're half wild boar. They've got these amazing long noses. They have curly hair like a sheep. Mm-hmm. And these old breeds are just tough as nails. So as a novice farmer, it's quite good going for the breeds that look after themselves, really. But they did absolutely trash where they lived because they are like bulldozers. They have these long noses that just dig so deep. And by the time the pigs had sadly moved on and we were eating them, the pen that we built them was like 1.5 meters deeper than it had been when they started. Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, I want to talk about the eating of animals because I think that for some people, when you say farming, like maybe they don't even think about animals. They would think about just like growing vegetables or something. So did you always know that you wanted to have animals as a core part of your farm?
Yeah, I think So when I moved in the depths of winter, and it was too hard to do any digging or any planting, too cold. Chickens felt too easy. Pigs felt like a really big step that was, me really putting my foot into this new way of life. So it was definitely like, I do eat meat. And my belief is very much that like, if you can't eat your own meat, I shouldn't be eating meat at all. It's very hard taking an animal that you've reared and loved and treated like a pet and a friend to the abattoir. That is I call it the betrayal day. And it weighs on me for weeks before and weeks afterwards. And, on that journey there with them in the back in the trailer, I'm like wrestling with the morality of that decision. It's a brutal thing to have to do. And I put it off and off and off every single time I have to go. It makes me miserable. But I love the truth of me being so close and so sad about what I'm doing. And I think we've lost a lot of the morality of eating meat in the world at the moment. So I feel quite proud to be so close to that. And I love having the opportunity to talk about it because I think it's not something that many people think of. But it was definitely always part of the plan. And if anything has become even more important to me, I eat a lot less meat than I used to because I feel so aware of the cost and the price of eating meat, not just financially, but morally, on the planet, all sorts of things. And I just think we overindulge meat eating. We don't need to eat as much meat as we do. Less is more, and quality over quantity has become my real ethos.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that as a meat eater who doesn't have to slaughter my own meat, I like that. I like the idea of people like you that care about the meat that's raising it, and that intentionality is a part of it, because meat has literally, at least here in America, been subsidized by the government. Like, it shouldn't be as affordable to eat as it actually is. No. And I think that because it is so affordable, it makes it this really easy option for people, which obviously like food costs in general are quite high, and like I don't fault anybody for that. But I think that like the real cost isn't something that most people are even aware of. So it's interesting to hear your side of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, subsidy essentially means that something's unsustainable. If you're needing extra help to produce something, it means that your inputs are bigger than your outputs. And yeah, that's a mistake in a world where there's resources are finite.
Definitely. So I wonder if, like, thinking back on these early years at the farm, if you could like go have lunch with yourself in the first year and give a piece of advice, what's something you would say? Like
I said earlier, I love all the mistakes I made because they've become such a part of my journey. Something Lauren, who I'm working with here in New York, and I were talking about yesterday was one day I was walking down to the pigs in the morning, taking them a bucket of apples, some acorns like that I'd harvested from the oak trees, and their normal feed. And it was the most beautiful winter morning. Those days like today where the air is so crisp and the sun is shining, but it's cold, but that warmth on your skin, despite the cold, is just the best feeling. I thought, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to let the pigs out today. I reckon they're so hungry, they'll just follow me with the bucket around and they can have a bit of a walk. We'll have a lovely day. So I went down to the pen, opened the gate, and they sort of looked at this hole that suddenly appeared in their pen. Do you know the story of Plato's cave? The idea that people have been trapped in a cave and they suddenly open the door and your reality just changes so much that you don't even know like what's left or right. And the pigs kind of walked through this hole and were so daunted by this new world they were experiencing. And then suddenly this wild look came over their eyes and 4 pigs went in 4 different directions at like breakneck speed. And I've never been so stressed. We lived next to a golf course at that time, and they were kind of barreling towards it, running through brambles and the bush, like, bulldozers. They were kind of finding dead squirrels and pheasants and just eating them. And they couldn't have been less interested in the food that I was, the food bucket that I was trying to shake.
Your precious acorns and apples.
Yeah, not a chance. And I'm there in, big winter boots, a huge coat, running after them, sweating, throwing off layers as I ran, trying to get them back. It took 4 hours or 2 hours. And by the time I got them in, I collapsed, like I fainted on the floor and sort of came to dizzy a few minutes later and got so sick, when you get warm and then cold in the winter. Oh
Such a bad feeling.
But it's sort of little things like that. I don't think there was ever any, and then there is, animals do die and things like that. But all the mistakes have never been major enough to like want to undo them, but the learning from them has always been key.
Right. I feel like maybe that's even the lesson, although maybe you felt this way back in that moment, even that like every mistake was going to be how you know how to do something properly the next time. And farming is such a long-term game. I think about this with cooking also. Like I I can't wait to be the grandma that's so good at cooking everything because I've been cooking those dishes now and I'm going to keep cooking them. That kind of repetition, that is a learning.
Yeah. Another one that's obviously like a sort of lovely, funny story that ultimately ended with no consequences. But, other times are that time you didn't wake up early enough and you come out and a mother's there with her little lamb that is stillborn, pawing at it, desperate for it to get up, her kind of instincts, motherly instincts firing, wanting to feed this thing, wanting to nurture this thing, and it's just not moving. And there's a big part of you that's like, God, if I'd been there 10 minutes earlier, I could have saved that.
Yeah.
And those are pretty, that's a hard lesson to learn, but ultimately an important one too.
Yeah. And I feel like to me, even on the concept of meat eating, like when you are reminded that death can happen for an animal in so many, or for us in so many different kinds of ways, like at least having that death serve some cause, which is feeding people and feeding them like delicious quality food, like feels like it has more value necessarily than like some of the other things that can happen.
Yeah. And that's why it's important that, we don't waste our food, that we appreciate it, that we care where it's come from. We think about where it's come from and we, respect it on the plate as much as we do in the field. And that's what's so special about cooking is you're, nurturing and giving love to friends and family, all sitting at the table together, the lovely warm conversation it brings. Yeah, I think to eat meat thoughtlessly is a real mistake in a world where, the place that we call home is, having quite a tough time at the back of that.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Yeah.
So I guess thinking about respecting the food on the plate, I'm curious about how you approach recipe development. Obviously, we're here to talk about your wonderful new cookbook, The Farm Table. Do you cook things just for yourself and then adapt the recipe into something that you think you're going to share, like maybe online or in your book? Or what's kind of your process for taking like the day-to-day sustenance into recipes that are meant to be shared?
I mean, I cook for myself, every day. And it's generally pretty lovely food that I think people would be interested to try. I'm not dumbing down the food that I make for the internet or for my books. It's just like lovely, simple, seasonal cooking that looks elegant and lovely on the plate, but anyone could make themselves at home. If it's a freezing cold day and I've had a big morning outside, I will want something warming and sustaining and make a lovely stew. And it's as simple as that. I just think the days that happen inspire me, what's in the garden, what's growing in the woods or what's in the farm shop that day. And you just make something around it. The book ethos is that it's set through the seasons. So everything is, I like to live and cook super seasonally. It's my one like big rule. Once my tomatoes are finished in September, October, I'm not going to touch another one until June when they're growing again. Same with courgettes, all sorts of things. I really kind of live by that. For me, there's nothing worse than a kind of crap, bland, colorless winter tomato that has been flown across the world and has no life to it whatsoever. It's a shadow of what a tomato should be. And the joy of waiting for those good tomatoes to come back, that anticipation, massively builds the flavor. I get so excited for tomatoes to come back, courgettes, chilies, peppers, whatever it is, because you're desperate for it. Asparagus. I can't wait for in a few weeks it'll be asparagus season again.
Yeah, asparagus is the first thing kind of. We get ramps here early in the year.
Yeah.
But when you're doing the book seasonally, so were you developing every season like for that book and then coming back to it when you were getting new ingredients, or how did that kind of work in terms of waiting to have everything?
We did the book in quite an unusual way. So most people would bring a kind of mostly finished skeleton of a book to the publisher, photograph it, finesse it, print it. Whereas this was, because I wanted it to do it seasonally, I said, right, I'm going to start writing now. We can publish the book then. And, I wrote spring, tested all the way through. Then we shot it right at the end of the spring, still with ingredients from the garden in the farm shops. Then wrote summer, tested it, shot it, wrote autumn. So it kind of went like that. So the book has this, you can kind of feel the way the light changes in it. You can feel the colors in the spring chapter compared to the autumn chapter are so different. And I love that, and it meant we weren't kind of buying anything in from abroad. It was super local, lovely ethos. And, those ingredients, when they're of the time, just do look and taste beautiful. And I think you can really feel that in the book. And then it has this lovely seasonal photography of farm life, because it was about using food and the seasons as a way of telling the story of the year through the farm.
Yeah, I think it really comes across that you must have done something in that way. It feels very honest in terms of the images really reflecting like what you're writing about and what the recipes are about. Did you have a favorite season?
In the book, I think my winter cooking is probably the best.
Interesting. I feel like that's kind of like, I mean, it's a very cozy season to cook, but in terms of the produce, I feel like it's not really a fan favorite.
No, it's a harder season to cook in because you're much more limited. But I think it's a season where you really need your food, you know? When it's blooming cold, you're working hard outside. The feeling of something like warm and sustaining when you get back in is just so good. Whereas summer, you know, it's so hot, you almost don't want to eat. I love the cooking of the summer because it's very like off the cuff and fast and, you know, just kind of thrown together onto the plate. But I think they're like slower, more methodical, more technical, not necessarily meaning hard, but like there's a lot more stages in winter cooking. I love the building of flavor that you get in winter. So it's a chapter I'm particularly proud of.
Yeah. What would you want to eat today? It's very snowy and cold in New York from the winter chapter.
A recipe that I'm particularly proud of is this slow cooked pork belly with prunes and onions and sage. When you've had pork, like everyone makes a big fuss over the crispy skin, which is lovely, don't get me wrong. But this is quite a cool way of cooking it, inspired by like the more Chinese style where you braise it with the skin on and the skin becomes this amazing jellyish texture. But instead of soy and mirin and, you know, all these interesting things, it's a more English version of that with like cider and milk. And you get this amazing pork that slowly cooks in the cider and milk, which reduces down and kind of curdles a bit to this incredible sauce with the like sweetness from the prunes, sharpness from the cider. You have it with some mash, some nutmeg on top, and it is, I love that recipe so much.
It sounds really delicious and cozy. No wonder it's a favorite from the book. I'm curious on the flip side if there's a recipe that you had to test for a long time to get right that maybe was a little bit more of a challenge.
Yeah, loads. Some of them you kind of first time you were like, this is an absolute hole in one. I'll make it one more time just to make sure we're safe, but this is a winner. But then others, you know, like the puddings, for instance, I'm not a pastry chef by trade. So the puddings took a lot more work in the book. Just because it's a bit, you know, out of my comfort zone. There's some of the recipes I'm most proud of because I put a lot of work into them. But they took a lot more testing. One, for instance, was, you know, panna cotta.
Yeah.
So panna cotta is a dish where like, I would never really order that in the restaurant. I think it can be a bit of a like punch at the end of the meal and often leave you, you know, quite wasted by it. You know, when they're like too thick and too rich, it kind of kills you. So I wanted to make a really light panna cotta, not too tall, quite thin, and it's quite sharp. So I was trying different things like using yogurt, using sheep's milk, and trying to, you know, sour it up and make it not such a kind of fatty hit, and end up doing a buttermilk panna cotta recipe with roasted strawberries with black pepper, which is so good. With the panna cotta flavored with a bit of elderflower, where you just steep the flowers in the warm milk before you set it. That took a week of like making, you know, the different percentages and types of cream and milk that I was using. You know, I'd be taking up a tray of different panna cottas to mum, who'd like have a spoon of each, and we were trying to work out which was best. And by the end of the week, like even the chickens were eating panna cotta. It was so fun. I'd go and, you know, turn out a kind of ramekin with the panna cotta in that had only had a spoon taken out of it and set it on the ground for the chickens who'd peck at it.
It must be very satisfying to watch those little tiny beaks.
It was so
out the
good.
Panna cotta.
It was so good. Yeah. And they hate having messy beaks, chickens. They're kind of funnily tidy about their beaks. And they do this really lovely, like wiping thing on the floor, on the grass after they're done. The best is watching them eat things like spaghetti, but the panna cotta was very funny.
Do they slurp the spaghetti?
They do it in one. So it's much like in, what's that film, Lady and the Tramp?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I felt like I was being like a silly city person by even asking that, because I was like, there's no way chickens know how to slurp.
Yeah,
they do.
They kind of, you know, it goes down bit by bit.
Yeah.
Once, I think like our postman dropped a load of elastic bands and they thought that was worms or spaghetti, and I had to pull these elastic bands out of their mouths.
That's so funny.
Because it's obviously like worms. So for them, you know, which is one of their favorite foods.
Yeah, they even jiggle like a worm would. Do they have names?
I don't name my chickens, no. It's quite bad luck to do that. I think the minute you name one, the fox is going to get it. So there's a lovely chicken in the beginning of my book who we called Henny, who was just so tame and so sweet. But the minute I took a photo of her and kind of immortalized her in the book, the fox grabbed her.
It's funny that you say that, because I was about to say that everyone I know that's named their chickens, it's been very sad.
It's a death sentence.
Yeah, the coyotes in LA, people I know that have chickens out there. Game over.
Yeah.
So, okay, you mentioned asparagus. Let's talk about spring on the farm a little bit. What are the first crops that come up? What are you most excited to cook with?
Spring's a funny time. The early part of spring is called the hungry gap, which is where the winter produce is finishing and the spring stuff isn't quite starting. So it can be quite a Spartan time. But once spring gets going, you've got peas, you've got wild garlic, which you guys call ramps,
So is the hungry time like early March?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
Yeah. Even the beginning of April can be quite a tough time.
Yeah.
But yeah, peas, broad beans, you have the first little bit of mint, you might have some new potatoes, spring onions. So it's a lovely, like green, very light, delicious time. But it's also the time when I'm like the most busy because obviously all the animals are giving birth. So it tends to be quite quick meals in like stolen moments between watching with binoculars while sheep are about to give birth and needing to run in and help.
Yeah. Did you realize you were going to become so much of a sheep midwife?
No, I mean, that's the stuff that really takes you by surprise. I've done things that I never thought I'd do. I remember the first time I kind of had to really help out. I had a sheep who had, you see like fluids coming out the back end, let's say, just as you would in mums in that, you know, we know of. And sheep are very stoic. They don't show their pain. They just crack on. So you'll have a sheep who's like clearly halfway through giving birth, but she's just there eating grass. But you know that something's up. You know, if you watch and it's been 2 hours while you've, you know, just had this, you know, a little bit of a nose poking out, you need to help and get stuck in. Often they can kind of tighten up rather than relax and the lamb gets stuck, maybe with its head out and it's getting suffocated. I called, you know, when I was in the early days, I called my shepherdess friend, Angie, and said, Angie, something's going on here. I don't really know what to do. And she said, you've got to catch it and you've got to get in there and you've got to pull that out. And I thought, what? I do that? Doesn't the vet do that? She's like, no. You know, if you call the vet every time you've got that, you're going to be in the red. So you spend ages trying to catch this sheep who's got no intention of being caught while they're giving birth. And yeah, you just lube up with this special animal. You know, we have these huge buckets of animal lube.
Glamorous.
Wash your hands and like in you go. And you know, the crazy thing is when you have twins, you've got you can't just pull a lamb out like randomly. They have to come out the right way. And often what will happen, the reason they get stuck is because they've got their arms back, which, you know, if you put your arms back, it makes your shoulders very wide. Whereas if you go into a diving position, your shoulders are nice and tight. So that's how they're supposed to come out in the diving way. But if they get their arms pinned, you have to kind of go in and unhook these arms and get them coming out first. But if you've got twins, you've got, 8 legs. You have to work out which ways the hoofs are pointing, make sure that that's from this lamb, not the other, and you're just blind. So that's like quite a classic story in spring. I'll be there with someone on the phone on speaker, someone else holding the sheep and me kind of fumbling about.
How many sheep do you think you've helped birth?
Oh, lots. You probably get 5 tricky births a year.
Wow.
But it's the best. I cannot describe to you how good a feeling it is. It is unbelievable when you save a life like that and you're so close to a birth.
Yeah.
And I think like initially the ewes, you call them, as a female sheep, have no intention of being caught, but there is a moment where they understand you're there helping. And when you pull this lamb out that was stuck, you do this thing where you like grab a blade of grass and tickle their little nose, and that tickling can really like snap them to life. And you hear these first kind of choked, spluttery, weak breaths, and the mum hops up and starts licking it, and you get these beautiful, like sensitive, instinctual reactions happening. That's the thing that has brought me so close to my animals and given me such a respect for them. They are so sensitive and loving and caring and individual, you know, about how they do things, and so like us. It's kind of the most beautiful but also sad realization to have, because, you know, a lot of those animals just don't even get the chance to ever show that sensitivity or individuality in the modern world. So yeah, it can be very powerful, very poignant. It's my favorite time of year.
Yeah, it sounds really beautiful. I would imagine the like hormones are all swirling around from the animals and us, and, you know, we are animals, so it all kind of feels the same. I also am a twin, so now I'm just kind of having sympathy for the sheep twins. I'm glad that I didn't have to be birthed that kind of way necessarily.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm curious about like what the seafood is like living on the Dorset coast. What kinds of things are you catching and eating?
It's incredible. Yeah, I'm very lucky to live right by the sea. A lot of crab. We have amazing crab where we are, and one of my farm shops sells like beautiful hand-picked crab for you know, pretty good value. So I eat that a lot. A recent thing I've been seriously loving is Maybe you've had like crab mayo on toast before, but there's a really fun thing where you do a curried mayo.
Oh, is this coronation mayo?
Yeah, kind
I
of.
just learned about this when I was in London.
Yeah.
And everyone was saying, oh, coronation mayo, as if I should have known what it was. But it's really good. For someone who's not had it, can you maybe explain what that is?
So like the classic English thing is called coronation chicken, which is a kind of curried mayo with chicken and mango chutney, and you have it in a sandwich or with like roast potatoes. It's really good.
And it was made for a royal coronation.
Yeah. So every time there's a coronation, a special dish gets made. And it's one of them. And it's probably the best one of them. Some of them are pretty dodgy. Like this year, it was an odd curried quiche thing that didn't really land at all. But coronation chicken has become like, that is a big time British like comfort dish. But you can do it with crab and make it a bit more like you kind of fry off some butter, add the spices in, render them off in the butter, and add sultanas and coriander and all these things, and stir that through crab and have it on toast with some chili, and it is so good.
It sounds really good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I have to try that. So I had, I guess, coronation mayo, which is just minus the chicken, just the condiment at 40 Maltby Street when I was in London.
Which is an amazing restaurant.
Which is an amazing restaurant. They nailed it. I had it, I think it was with cauliflower fritters. You just dipped them in, and we were sitting right at the counter. So we were watching them make everything and kind of eventually pluck up the courage to say, sorry, what is coronation mayo? And we got the whole download. But I like the idea of doing that with crab. That's really special.
Quite a kind of, it's a good snazzy like nibble to have with drinks before you have dinner, if you're ever into that kind of thing. Yeah, it's
on
so
like
good.
A thick cut toast, or
I quite like, not too thick, but like sourdough that's quite well toasted. Yeah, so good.
I like that idea. I don't know if it's easy to get milk bread where you are, if that's something you would ever make, but I would imagine it would be really good on milk bread too.
Yeah, I've made milk bread, but no, we aren't able to get that around us. Countryside is like, oddly, it's where all the best ingredients are, but the cooking is very simple around where we are because it's old school farming country.
Right, but then also you get to make everything, all the delicious things.
Yeah.
So I guess to close today, I want to play a little taste test with you. So I'll ask you some questions and you'll give me the first answer that comes into your head.
Sure.
Okay, favorite cookbook?
My favorite cookbook is called A Messy Business by Rowley Lee. It's a fantastic book. I love it to bits.
What is The Messy Business?
I suppose he's referring to cooking as a messy business. And it has this beautiful cover of a chopping board with a crab claw on and a hammer. And he's an old school, like very scene-defining British chef, like one of the godfathers of British cooking. And it's just a very purist, very beautiful, staggeringly delicious book.
Cool. Favorite vegetable to grow?
To grow? Courgettes, probably, zucchini. They are the most rewarding vegetable. Like, you will not be able to keep up with your courgette plant. They're impossible to kill. They're tough as nails. And yeah, it'll make you look like an amazing gardener, but secretly they're just awesome plants.
They're just popping
I
up.
love them to bits.
Okay, your favorite vegetable to eat?
I've recently fallen in love with Romanesco broccoli. You know that beautiful broccoli that does the kind of spiralization?
Fractal, yeah.
I mean, firstly, the coolest looking thing that ever grew. But they are just so delicious. I'm obsessed. A thing I've been doing lately is, so you just kind of briefly boil that in salted water and then mix it with a slow cooked onion with anchovy, garlic and herbs and olive oil. Toss that together and you can have it through pasta, have it on top of some white beans, have it with a steak. It's so good.
I love that. I'll have to try it. Okay, your favorite food focused like TV show or movie?
Food focused TV show or movie. I mean, I love Chef, Ratatouille. I love the food in like Studio Ghibli films.
Yeah, that's such a popular thing. I feel like it always, the animation somehow looks so like real and delicious.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, your favorite season for cooking?
Well, like I said earlier, I think I'm definitely better at like autumn, winter kind of food. And autumn is an amazing time to cook because you have the end of summer produce and the beginning of winter produce. So it's where you have all of the ingredients to hand. So that's probably my favorite time.
Mm-hmm. Something that you'll never make from scratch?
Maybe like miso or puff pastry. I would love to make puff pastry because I love croissants more than anything in the world. But I've never made puff pastry yet. I make a thing called rough puff, which is like a cheats puff pastry.
It counts, yeah. Your favorite London restaurant?
Probably St. John or Kiln. St. John is like like with Rowley Lee, like Fergus Henderson is the king of British food. He was Anthony Bourdain's favorite chef. And then Kiln is this awesome, like fast-paced Thai restaurant, which I just particularly love, like that kind of food, because I don't get to eat that kind of stuff in the countryside at all.
I went when I was in London in December, and now I'm thinking that maybe you mentioned it at the other podcast
I might
event.
have,
And
yeah.
I don't know if, I think a lot of people recommended it to me, but I loved it.
It's
I
so
had
good,
so much.
isn't it?
I sat at the counter and just ate like all of the little grilled skewers. It was
So
really
spicy.
fun. Yeah, I love that. Okay, your favorite London wine bar?
It's tricky. I mean, I'm so not a part of the London scene anymore. I really am just a country boy. So I think out of loyalty, I'd have to say Noble Rock, just because there's nowhere better to go and have a glass of wine.
Yeah, you got to say it. Okay, and to close, like something that would never grow on your farm in terms of like climate or geography that you wish could grow very well on your farm.
I mean, I was just in Mexico eating like avocados every single day that taste better than any avocado I've ever eaten. It would be pretty special to have a avocado tree in the garden.
That's probably like the best answer.
Yeah. Or mango. I mean, we were eating mangoes too, and they are just mind blowing when they're good.
Yeah, well, I'll manifest like a hybrid avocado mango tree that grows in Dorset for you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming by, Julius. This was so fun.
It's a pleasure. Love being here.
This is Taste is hosted by Eliza Abarbanel and me, Matt Rodbar. The show is produced by Shalia Harris and Pat Stango and edited by Clayton Gumbert. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter for updates on all cool things that are happening.